The last act of love. When Thomas Brennan announced his engagement to a girl young enough to be his granddaughter, the internet exploded. What they didn't know would change everything. The news broke on a Tuesday morning through a single post on Thomas's rarely used social media account. A photo of an elegant diamond ring on a young woman's hand, accompanied by the caption, "She said yes." Within minutes, the algorithms had identified the woman as Alina Vasquez, 18 years old, an office cleaner. The age gap was 42 years. The judgment was immediate. The truth was buried 6 feet deep before anyone discovered it. But 3 months earlier, on a cold January night in 2025, the story had begun very differently. Thomas sat in his oncologist's office, the holographic display floating between them showing images of his pancreas that looked like a constellation of death. Dr. Patricia Chen's face held the professional sympathy of someone who delivered bad news for a living. "Stage 4, she said quietly. "The AI diagnostic confirms it. We can try aggressive treatment, but given the spread." She trailed off, letting the silence finish the sentence. Thomas nodded, his hands folded calmly in his lap. "How long?" "6 months, maybe 8 with treatment." "Thomas, I'm so sorry." He'd known it was coming. The same cancer that had taken his wife Maria 5 years ago was claiming him too. There was a dark poetry in that. They'd be together again, united by the disease that had separated them. "I'd like to decline treatment," he said. Dr. Chen looked surprised. "You're certain? There are new protocols." "I'm certain. I'd rather have 6 good months than 8 months of being sick from treatment that won't save me anyway." She nodded slowly. "What about your family? Have you told them?" Thomas smiled wryly. "My sister will inherit the company, my nephew the estate. They've been waiting patiently for me to die since Maria passed. I'm sure they won't be devastated." That night Thomas stood in his office on the 47th floor of Brennan Technologies, looking out at the glittering sprawl of San Francisco. His AI assistant, a sophisticated program named Atlas, had already begun organizing his affairs. The company transition, the charitable foundations, the personal estate. Everything was in order. Everything except the weight in his chest that had nothing to do with cancer. He pulled up the holographic display of Maria's last photo, taken just weeks before she died. Beautiful, brave, suffering. He'd had all the money in the world and couldn't save her. The helplessness had nearly destroyed him. "Sir," Atlas interrupted, "the night cleaning crew has arrived. Shall I lock your office?" "No, it's fine. I'll be leaving soon." He was reviewing financial reports when he heard the crash. His office door was open. He always left it open for the cleaning staff, and he saw a young woman on the floor, breathing hard, her hand pressed to her chest. Thomas rushed over. "Are you all right?" She looked up at him, her dark eyes filled with pain and embarrassment. "I'm fine, just dizzy, I'm fine." She clearly wasn't fine. Her lips had a bluish tinge, and her breathing was shallow and rapid. Thomas had seen enough medical crises with Maria to recognize serious distress. "I'm calling an ambulance." "No," she grabbed his arm with surprising strength. "No ambulance, please, I can't. I don't have insurance, I'll be okay, just need to rest." But she wasn't okay. Thomas watched helplessly as she struggled to breathe, pride and fear fighting in her expression. Finally, she passed out entirely. He called the ambulance anyway. At the hospital, Thomas waited in a chair outside the emergency room, feeling the cruel irony of the situation. Here he was, dying, sitting in perfect health, while a girl young enough to be his granddaughter fought for life. A doctor emerged after 2 hours. "Are you family?" "No, I found her. She collapsed at work. What's wrong with her?" The doctor hesitated, bound by privacy laws. "I can't discuss her case unless—" "I'll pay for her treatment. Whatever she needs. Put it on my account." Thomas handed over his card, the one with unlimited credit that marked him as someone hospitals paid attention to. The doctor's expression changed, becoming more open. She has severe cardiomyopathy. Her heart is failing. She needs a transplant. Then get her on the list. It's not that simple. She's undocumented. No insurance, no legal status. The waiting list for hearts is already years long for citizens. For someone in her situation, he trailed off. Thomas felt something cold settle in his stomach. So you're telling me she'll die because she doesn't have papers? I'm telling you the system has rules. I don't make them. She needed a heart transplant. He needed redemption. Neither expected what happened next. Alina woke to find herself in a private hospital room that was nicer than any place she'd ever lived. The man from the office, her employer, though she'd never actually spoken to him before, sat in a chair by the window, reading something on a tablet. "You're awake," he said, setting the device aside. "How do you feel?" Confused, angry. Her accent was thick, but her English was clear. "I told you not to call ambulance. You were dying. That was my choice to make." Thomas studied her, this fierce young woman who'd rather die than accept help she couldn't pay for. He recognized that pride. Maria had had it too. "The doctors say you need a heart transplant. $2.5 million, plus the cost of anti-rejection medications for the rest of your life." Alina laughed bitterly. "Then I will die. I make $8 an hour cleaning offices. I will never have that money." "What if I told you there was a way?" She looked at him suspiciously. "Nothing is free. What do you want?" Thomas leaned forward. "I'm dying. Pancreatic cancer. 6 months, maybe less. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, and nobody to leave it to except relatives who are already wealthy. I don't want your charity." "This isn't charity, it's a business transaction." He pulled out his tablet and opened a document. "If you marry me, you'll have legal status. My insurance will cover your transplant. You'll have access to the best medical care in the world. In exchange, you'll be my wife on paper, nothing more. We'll live separately, maintain separate lives. When I die, the marriage ends and you're free with a new heart and a legal path to citizenship." Alina stared at him like he'd lost his mind. "This is insane." "Probably, but it's the only way to save your life." "Why would you do this for a stranger?" Thomas looked out the window at the city lights. "Because I couldn't save my wife, but maybe I can save you." She was quiet for a long time. "People will think terrible things about you, about me. Let them think what they want. I'll be dead in 6 months. You'll be alive. That's all that matters." Alina's initial refusal was absolute. "I'm not a charity case. I'm not some poor immigrant you can save to feel good about yourself before you die." Thomas stood to leave. "You're right, I'm sorry to have bothered you." But as he reached the door, she spoke again. "Why me? You could help anyone, why me?" He turned back. "You remind me of my wife. The way you'd rather die than lose your dignity. She was the same way. Stubborn, proud, fierce. I loved her for it." His voice softened. "And I failed her. I had all this money, all these resources, and I couldn't save her from cancer. But you I can save, if you'll let me." The media firestorm when their engagement was announced was immediate and brutal. Social media algorithms flagged the age gap instantly, generating outrage-optimized content that spread faster than truth ever could. Within hours, there were think pieces about predatory billionaires, exploitation of vulnerable immigrants, the commodification of young women. Grooming not romance trended worldwide. Thomas's lawyer, Marcus Webb, arrived at the mansion looking like he'd aged 10 years overnight. "Do you have any idea what you've done? The board is talking about removing you from the company. Your family is threatening to have you declared mentally incompetent. And the media, Thomas, they're destroying you." Thomas sat calmly in his study, the same room where he and Maria had spent countless evenings. "Let them. Let them, your reputation will matter exactly nothing when I'm dead, which will be soon. What matters is that Alina gets her transplant and a chance at life." They're saying you're taking advantage of her desperation, that this is elder abuse in reverse, that she's a gold digger who seduced a dying man. Alina is in the east wing of this house. I'm in the west wing. We have separate bedrooms, separate lives. The marriage is a legal arrangement, nothing more. Marcus rubbed his temples. Then why not just sponsor her citizenship through other means? Why marriage? Because marriage grants immediate legal status and insurance coverage. We don't have time for the normal immigration process. Her heart could give out any day. Every tabloid called it disgusting. Every social media post called it predatory. Nobody called it what it actually was, the last act of a dying man's love. The wedding took place in a small chapel with only Marcus and a court-appointed witness present. Alina wore a simple white dress Thomas had bought, but she'd insisted on paying for with her cleaning wages. It had taken her 3 months. Thomas wore a suit he'd owned for years. The marriage certificate was signed in silence. The divorce papers were never filed. The funeral was attended by thousands who never understood. When the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," they looked at each other awkwardly and shook hands instead. The witness tried not to laugh. "This is the strangest wedding I've ever performed," the officiant said. "It's the strangest one I've ever attended," Alina agreed. They drove separately to the mansion. Alina had insisted on that, arriving in her old car rather than his driver's limousine. Pride, always pride. The mansion was a modern masterpiece in Pacific Heights, all glass and clean lines with a view of the bay that people paid millions just to glimpse. Alina stood in the entrance hall, looking overwhelmed. "The east wing is yours," Thomas said, gesturing. 3 bedrooms, private bathroom, sitting room. There's a kitchen up there too if you prefer not to use the main one. I'm in the west wing. We share the common areas, library, gym, pool, but you have complete privacy. This is too much. It's just space. Use it or don't. He handed her a key card. This will get you anywhere in the house. The security system knows you're authorized. The staff has been instructed to treat you as the lady of the house. I'm not. Legally, you are, whether you feel like it or not. He softened his tone. Alina, I know this is strange, but you're recovering from heart failure. You need rest, good food, low stress. This house can provide that. Please don't fight me on this. She took the key card, her hand trembling slightly. When is the transplant? They're evaluating you tomorrow. With your new insurance status, you've moved up significantly on the donor list. Could be weeks, could be months. And if you die before a heart becomes available, the marriage doesn't end at my death. My will ensures your status and medical coverage continue. You'll be taken care of. She looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. I don't understand you. You don't have to. You just have to let me help you live. They lived in the same mansion, but in completely separate worlds, until the night everything changed. For the first month, they barely saw each other. Alina spent her days recovering, attending medical appointments, learning to navigate a life that included things like a personal chef and a gym trainer. Thomas spent his days managing the company transition and his foundation work, ignoring the pain that was becoming harder to hide. The media speculation intensified. Paparazzi drones tried to photograph them through the windows until Thomas's security team deployed countermeasures. Think pieces debated whether Alina was victim or villain. His family hired investigators to prove the marriage was fraudulent. Through it all, Alina maintained a dignified silence. She didn't defend herself on social media, didn't give interviews, didn't explain. Thomas admired that about her. The first time they had dinner together was an accident. Alina had come down to the library to find a book and found Thomas there, eating alone at a small table. I'm sorry, she said. I didn't mean to intrude. You're not intruding, it's your house too. He gestured to the empty chair. Join me if you'd like or don't, no obligation. She hesitated, then sat. The cook had prepared enough food for an army. Thomas's appetite had shrunk with the cancer, but the staff hadn't adjusted yet. They ate in silence for a while. Then Alina said, "I saw the paintings in the hallway. Your wife." Maria, yes. She was beautiful. She was. Are you interested in art? Alina's face lit up slightly. I studied it in school before I came here. I wanted to be a teacher. What stopped you? Her expression darkened. Same thing that stops everyone. Money. My family needed help. I came here to work, send money home, then my heart. She trailed off. You could still teach, after the transplant, when you're recovered. With what credentials? I have no degree here, no legal work history. Who would hire me? You'll have legal status soon. You could go to school, get your teaching credentials. She laughed without humor. With what money? Thomas set down his fork. Alina, do you understand the resources available to you? As my wife, you have access to everything I have. If you want to go to school, go to school. If you want to travel, travel. If you want to start a business, start a business. The only limitation is whatever limitations you put on yourself. That's your money, not mine. It's our money, legally. That's what marriage means. This isn't a real marriage. The government doesn't care about our private arrangements. Legally, you're my wife. What's mine is yours. She stood up abruptly. I don't want your money, I just want my life back. Then take it back. Use the resources you have to build the life you want. She left without another word, but Thomas noticed she took the art book she'd been looking for. The media wanted a scandal. What they got was something they couldn't comprehend. Alina's transplant came sooner than expected, just 6 weeks after the wedding. A compatible heart became available after a tragic car accident, and suddenly she was being rushed into surgery. Thomas sat in the waiting room for 11 hours. His own doctor had advised against it. He was growing weaker, the cancer spreading, but he refused to leave. When the surgeon emerged, exhausted but smiling, Thomas felt something he hadn't felt in years: hope. The surgery was successful. The heart is functioning beautifully. She'll need time to recover, but barring complications, she should make a full recovery. Thomas closed his eyes. Thank you. He visited her in recovery, watching her sleep, her chest rising and falling with a rhythm that was strong and steady now. A stranger's heart beating in her chest, a gift from tragedy, a second chance. When she woke, groggy from anesthesia, she saw him and smiled. You're still here. Where else would I be? I thought people are saying things about us, terrible things. I thought you might want distance. Let them say what they want. He took her hand, the first time they'd touched since shaking hands at their wedding. You're going to live, Alina. That's all that matters. Tears rolled down her face. I don't know how to thank you. Live well, that's thanks enough. Her recovery was swift. Within 3 months she was stronger than she'd been in years. The new heart, young, healthy, powerful, had given her back a life she'd thought was over. But as Alina grew stronger, Thomas grew weaker. He hid it well at first. Business meetings conducted from home, trips canceled, public appearances declined. But Alina noticed the way he moved more slowly, ate less, spent more time resting. One evening she found him in the library, fallen asleep in his reading chair. She was about to leave when she noticed the medication bottles on the table beside him. She recognized some from her own hospital stay, powerful painkillers, anti-nausea drugs. She picked up a bottle and read the prescription, then another, and another. A picture formed that made her heart, her new, strong heart, ache with understanding. He was dying, really dying, not in some abstract future, but now, soon. When he woke, she was sitting across from him, the medication bottles between them. How long? She asked. Thomas rubbed his eyes. I didn't want you to worry. How long, Thomas? The doctor says maybe 2 months, maybe less. The cancer is aggressive. Why didn't you tell me? Because you were recovering. You needed to focus on getting better, not worrying about me. Alina felt anger and grief warring in her chest. You saved my life. Don't I have the right to know when you're dying? Your life is just starting. Mine is ending. That's how it should be. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Despite everything, Thomas laughed. You sound like Maria. She never let me get away with self-pity either. Tell me about her, please. And so he did. He told her about meeting Maria 25 years ago when she was a housekeeper in his first office building. How she'd been undocumented, terrified, working 3 jobs to send money home to her family in Colombia. I was already successful then, Thomas said. Not a billionaire yet, but doing well. I saw her one night working late, and something about her reminded me of my own mother, who'd been an immigrant too, worked cleaning jobs to support me and my sister. He'd offered to help Maria with her legal status. She'd refused, proud and suspicious. So he'd proposed a business arrangement, a green card marriage. She'd been horrified at first, but eventually agreed out of desperation. We got married at City Hall, lived in separate apartments, saw each other once a month for the immigration interviews. It was purely transactional. He smiled at the memory. And then, gradually, it wasn't. You fell in love. She did first, I think. Or maybe we fell at the same time, but she was braver about admitting it. One day, about a year into the arrangement, she showed up at my apartment with groceries and told me she was tired of pretending we were strangers. She said if we had to be married on paper, we might as well try being married for real. And you said yes. I said yes, best decision of my life. His eyes went distant. We had 23 years together, built this house, built the company, built a life. We were trying for children when she got sick. The same cancer you have. Same cancer. It took her in 8 months. I threw everything I had at it, the best doctors, experimental treatments, every option. Nothing worked. His voice broke. I had all this money and it meant nothing. I couldn't save her. Alina understood now. So you saved me instead. I saved you because I could. Because this time, the solution wasn't a cure that doesn't exist. It was just legal status and insurance coverage, problems money actually can solve. She was quiet for a long moment. Your wife would be proud of you. I hope so. I miss her every day. I wish I could have met her. You remind me of her, the strength, the pride, the fierce independence. He looked at Alina seriously. She would have liked you. Her transplant was successful. His cancer was spreading. And neither would admit what was really happening, that in the strangest way possible they were becoming family. The dinner conversations became regular. 3 times a week, then 4, then nearly every night. They talked about art, politics, books, life. Alina told him about growing up in Honduras, about her family, about her dreams that had been deferred by poverty and circumstance. Thomas told her about building his company, about the technology that had made him wealthy, about the foundation work he was most proud of. They never touched beyond that first hand-holding in the hospital. They maintained separate wings of the house, but something was growing between them, not romance, but something deeper. Understanding, respect, the kind of love that exists between people who have saved each other's lives. Thomas's ex-business partner, Richard Dalton, showed up one afternoon with an offer for Alina. He found her in the garden, tending to the roses Maria had planted years ago. Mrs. Brennan, he said, his smile calculated, may I have a word? Alina didn't like him. Something about his manner set her on edge, but she was polite. Of course. I'll be direct. I know this marriage is a sham. We all do. But I admire what you've done, marrying a dying billionaire to secure your future. Very clever. You don't know anything about my marriage. Oh, please. A 50-year-old man and an 18-year-old immigrant. Everyone knows what this is. He pulled out a checkbook. I'm prepared to offer you $5 million to leave Thomas and file for divorce. Think about it. $5 million, legal status secured through the marriage duration, and you walk away free before he dies and you have to deal with the estate battle. Elena stood up, her eyes blazing. Get out. 10 million, that's my final offer. My husband is dying. He saved my life when he had no reason to, and you think I'd abandon him for money? Richard laughed. Your husband, please, this is a business arrangement. He told me so himself. Then you don't know him at all, and you certainly don't know me. She stepped closer. I'm going to tell you this once. I don't want your money. I don't want anything from Thomas except his company while he's alive and my grief when he's gone. Now get off our property. After Richard left, Elena found Thomas in his study. He looked worse, grayer, thinner, the cancer eating him from the inside out. Richard was here, she said. I heard. I'm sorry. He means well in his terrible way. He offered me $10 million to leave you. Thomas looked up sharply, and I told him to get out. She sat down across from him. Did you really tell him this was just a business arrangement? I did back when it was. And now? Thomas set down his pen. Now I'm not sure what this is. I married you to save your life. You had no obligation beyond accepting that help, but you've stayed. You've had dinner with me, talked with me, listened to my stories. You've made these last months less lonely than I thought they'd be. You saved my life, Thomas. The least I can do is keep you company while you still have yours. Is that the only reason? She thought about it. No, I think somewhere along the way you became my friend, maybe the best friend I've ever had. I'm honored, truly. He paused. Elena, I need to tell you something. When I die, my will leaves the bulk of my estate to the foundation and immigrant rights causes. You'll receive a trust fund, enough to live comfortably, go to school, whatever you want, but not billions. My family is already angry about even that much. They may contest the will. I don't want billions. I don't even want millions. I just want you to be okay. I'm not going to be okay. I'm going to be dead. I know, she struggled for words. I hate this. I hate that I got my second chance and you're losing yours. That's life, Elena. Unfair and brief and precious because of it. When Thomas collapsed during a board meeting, Elena made a choice that revealed everything. She'd been home that day, working on college applications. Thomas had convinced her to pursue her teaching degree when she got the call. Thomas had collapsed mid-presentation. He was being rushed to the hospital. The board wanted to know if they should call his sister. I'm coming, Elena said. Don't call anyone else until I get there. She drove to the hospital in Thomas's car. She'd gotten her license during her recovery, breaking speed limits and not caring. When she arrived, the doctors were honest with her in a way they probably shouldn't have been, assuming she had the right to know because she was his wife. The cancer has spread to his liver and lungs. He has days, maybe a week. We can make him comfortable, but there's nothing more we can do. Elena sat by his bedside while he slept, his hand in hers. The machines beeped softly, marking time he didn't have. When he woke, he smiled weakly. You came. Of course I came. You're my husband. In name only. No, she said firmly. In name and in fact. Maybe not in the way people assume, but in every way that matters. You're my family, Thomas. The only family I have in this country. He squeezed her hand. I'm glad I met you. These last months, they meant something. You helped me feel less like I was just waiting to die. You weren't waiting to die. You were living. We were both living. The hospital wanted to admit him for end-of-life care, but Elena refused. He's coming home. If he's going to die, he's going to do it in his own bed, in his own house, surrounded by everything he loved. She hired hospice nurses, set up medical equipment in his bedroom, transformed the West Wing into a place of comfort and dignity. And she stayed. Not in the East Wing anymore, but in the room next to his, so she could hear if he needed anything in the night. His sister Rebecca finally showed up, angry and defensive. Where have you been? Why didn't you call me sooner? He didn't want me to. He said you'd make a scene. Rebecca looked at Alina with open hostility. Of course, he didn't want his gold-digging child bride calling his real family. Get out. This is my brother's house. No, it's my house, mine and Thomas's, and he doesn't need your negativity right now. Alina's voice was steel. If you want to see him, you'll be respectful, otherwise leave. Rebecca left, but she'd be back with lawyers. Alina knew that, but she didn't care. All that mattered was making sure Thomas's final days were peaceful. They called it a marriage of convenience. They were right, just not in the way they thought. Thomas's lucid moments became fewer as the morphine increased to manage the pain. But during those moments, he and Alina talked. "There's something I need to show you," he said one afternoon. "In my safe. The combination is Maria's birthday, August 15, 1970, 8,151,970. Alina found the safe in his study and opened it. Inside were documents, photos, and a small box with her name on it. She brought everything to his bedside. "Open the box first," Thomas said. Inside was a simple silver necklace with a pendant, a tiny heart made of Maria's wedding ring, melted down and reformed. Maria wanted to donate her organs when she died, Thomas explained, but the cancer made that impossible. This was the next best thing I could think of, her ring transformed into a heart, given to someone who needed a new heart to live. His eyes were wet. "I had it made months ago. I was waiting for the right time to give it to you." Alina clutched the necklace, tears streaming down her face. "It's beautiful." "Now the letters. Read them when you're ready. They explain everything." The letters were in a bundle, organized by date. Alina started reading that night, sitting by Thomas's bedside while he slept. The first was dated 25 years ago, written by Maria to herself, documenting her decision to marry Thomas. She'd been scared, uncertain, but desperate. The letters that followed chronicled her gradual falling in love with him, her joy when he reciprocated, their life together. But the most recent letters were from Thomas to Alina, written over the past months. They explained his motivations, his hopes for her future, his gratitude for her company. One letter stood out. "Alina, if you're reading this, I'm likely gone or nearly there. I want you to know that marrying you was not an act of charity or pity. It was an act of love, not romantic love, but the love of someone who has been blessed beyond measure and wants to pass that blessing on. Maria taught me that love has many forms, the love between spouses, the love between friends, the love of a stranger for a stranger who needs help. All of it matters, all of it counts. You reminded me that my life could still have purpose even as it was ending. You gave me the gift of meaning in my final months. For that, I am eternally grateful. Live well, Alina. Build the life Maria and I built, one of purpose and joy and love in whatever form it takes. And know that somewhere, somehow, Maria and I are cheering you on." Alina read the letter 3 times, crying so hard she could barely breathe. When the hospice nurse checked on her, she found Alina with her head on Thomas's bed, his hand in hers, both of them sleeping. The will reading shocked everyone, but not for the reasons they expected. Thomas died on a Wednesday morning, just as the sun was rising over the bay. Alina was with him, holding his hand, telling him about the college acceptance letter she'd received the day before. "I got in," she whispered. "Art education program, full scholarship. I'm going to be a teacher, Thomas, just like I always wanted." He smiled, squeezed her hand weakly, and closed his eyes. His breathing slowed, then stopped. The machines alarmed, but Alina had already instructed the hospice team not to resuscitate. This was his time. She sat with his body for an hour, saying goodbye to the man who'd saved her life and in the process, given both of them purpose. The funeral was massive. Tech industry giants, philanthropists, politicians, everyone who'd known Thomas Brennan or wanted to be seen honoring him. The media covered it extensively, still pushing the narrative of the predatory billionaire and his gold-digging bride. Alina gave a eulogy that silenced critics. You didn't know Thomas Brennan. You saw the age gap and made assumptions. You saw the marriage and created scandals. You saw what you wanted to see. But I saw a man who lost the love of his life to cancer and spent his final months trying to save someone else from a different kind of death. I saw a man who could have spent his last days in bitterness but chose generosity instead. I saw a friend, a mentor, a kind soul who taught me that love isn't always romantic. Sometimes it's simply choosing to use your privilege to help someone who has none. Thomas saved my life, but not just physically. He showed me that goodness still exists in this world. That some people, when given every reason to be selfish, choose kindness instead. That marriage can be sacred without being sexual, and love can be profound without being romantic. You judged him without knowing him. I knew him, and I'm here to tell you, Thomas Brennan was one of the finest men who ever lived, and I was honored to call him my husband. When the lawyers read his will, his family expected a scandal. What they got was a lesson in what love actually means. The estate was valued at $847 million. Of that, $800 million went to the Brennan Foundation, specifically earmarked for immigrant rights, medical access for undocumented people, and scholarships for underprivileged students. Alina received a trust fund of $5 million, enough to live comfortably and pursue her education, but not the massive inheritance everyone expected. Rebecca immediately filed a contest. She manipulated him. She took advantage of a dying man. But the lawyers had anticipated this. They presented evidence, the prenuptial agreement Alina and Thomas had signed, limiting her inheritance, her bank records showing she'd never spent extravagantly despite having access to unlimited funds, testimony from the hospice nurses about their platonic relationship and her devoted care. Most damning was a video Thomas had recorded 2 weeks before his death. I'm making this recording to prevent my family from contesting my will. I want it on record that I am of sound mind, that Alina Vasquez married me not for money, but because I convinced her to accept my help, and that every decision I've made regarding my estate reflects my true wishes. Alina has asked for nothing. She has taken nothing beyond what she needed for medical care. She has given me companionship and kindness during the hardest months of my life. The trust fund I'm leaving her is more than generous for someone who wanted nothing at all. To my sister and nephew, you are already wealthy. You don't need more. But the undocumented immigrants in this country who are dying because they can't access health care, they need everything. So that's where my money is going. And to anyone who thinks this marriage was inappropriate or exploitative, you understand nothing about love, sacrifice, or what it means to use your privilege for good. I pity you. The contest was dropped. Rebecca left, humiliated and angry, and Alina was left with a trust fund she'd never wanted, a mansion she didn't need, and a hole in her heart where her friend used to be. 1 year later, Alina stood in front of a classroom of ESL students at a community college, teaching them about art history. She wore simple clothes, drove a modest car, and lived in a small apartment she rented despite being able to afford much more. The trust fund mostly sat untouched except for her education expenses. She donated $1 million to the Brennan Foundation and used another $1 million to set up a scholarship program for undocumented students pursuing teaching degrees. On her desk was a photo of Thomas and Maria, and around her neck was the necklace he'd given her, Maria's wedding ring transformed into a heart. Her students loved her. They saw themselves in her story, someone who'd come from nothing, fought for everything, and refused to forget where she came from. After class, a young woman approached her. "Ms. Vasquez, I just wanted to say, your story inspired me. I'm undocumented too. I was going to drop out because I can't afford to continue, but I applied for your scholarship. Did you get it?" The young woman nodded, tears in her eyes. "I got it. I'm going to be a teacher too." Alina hugged her. "Good. The world needs more teachers, especially teachers who understand struggle." That night, Alina visited Thomas's grave for the first time since the funeral. She'd needed time to process her grief, to build her new life, to become the person he'd believed she could be. "I did it," she told the headstone. "I got my teaching credentials. I'm helping other people the way you helped me. The scholarship program is working. We've helped 37 students so far." People still write think pieces about us, about whether what you did was noble or creepy, whether I was victim or gold digger. But I don't care anymore. I know the truth. You saved my life, and I spent your last months trying to make you smile. That's all that matters. I miss you. I miss our dinner conversations. I miss your terrible jokes and your stories about Maria. I miss having someone who understood me without judgment. She touched the headstone. "I'm going to live well, I promise. I'm going to build the kind of life you and Maria built, one that matters, one that helps people, one that would make you proud." As she stood to leave, she noticed a young couple nearby, visiting another grave. The woman was crying, the man holding her tenderly. Real romantic love, the kind Thomas and Maria had found. Alina smiled. Love came in so many forms. She'd found her form with Thomas, not romance but something equally precious. Friendship, mentorship, the profound connection between two souls who'd saved each other from different kinds of death. She drove home in the used Honda she'd bought with her teaching salary, past the mansion in Pacific Heights that stood empty now. She donated it to a nonprofit that housed immigrant families. Past the office building where she'd once cleaned floors and collapsed from heart failure. Her new heart beat strong and steady, Thomas's final gift still keeping her alive. And she understood now what he'd tried to teach her, that true love isn't always romantic. Sometimes it's sacrificial, unconditional, and completely misunderstood by a world obsessed with conventional relationships. Sometimes love looks like a dying billionaire marrying a teenager to save her life. Sometimes it looks like that teenager staying to comfort him through his final days. Sometimes love is just two broken people helping each other become whole again, before death separates them. And that, Alina thought as she unlocked her apartment door, was the most beautiful love story of all.